We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley. Angela, good to see you. It sounds like there may be some new developments up ahead, or is this just another bluff from the US president?
Yes, of course. It might well be, certainly with Donald Trump, and in any war, bluff is part of strategy. We don't know. The two things being talked about then, as you mentioned, extending the blockade for several months. That is very much a case of saying to Iran, we will not blink first. The Americans do believe this is being effective and that it is really impacting the Iranian economy. And the second, as we heard there, Admiral Brad Cooper, the head of CENTCOM, the US Central Command, to brief Trump today on possible options to resume military combat, major combat. And the two options, really, one of them is to hit infrastructure again. The idea would be for something short and effective. The other option being discussed, apparently, is a partial takeover of the Strait of Hormuz. That is in line with the fact that the Americans do seem to think that strategically targeting, trying to end this Iranian control of Hormuz is a good policy. But should the US use any military combat there, that's very likely to involve ground troops. So that is very difficult. So we really are in a question of who will blink first. There are a number of things to consider, factors that Donald Trump will be considering. He is in mid-May due to go to China. Now, China has strategic oil and natural gas reserves, and so to a certain extent it's been kind of cushioned up until now from the effect on this. But it is, as we know, a manufacturing-based economy. It is starting to be impacted. Donald Trump will not want to be in a difficult position when he goes to China, with China exerting pressure on him. He will want to be to have the upper hand on that. The other people, the Gulf states, want an end to this war. Short, not an end at any cost, an end which does not leave Iran belligerent and feeling it has got something very significant out of this. And we also heard yesterday Donald Trump spoke to Putin on the phone, which in itself is astonishing. I mean, Putin is a chief ally of Iran, with which the US is at war. Putin apparently said, there would be very damaging consequences if the US resumed military combat, that means whatever it means. But there are a number of factors feeding into this. There is a growing sense that despite the fact that oil reached sky-high prices, $126 Brent crude, that benchmark price there yesterday before coming down slightly, I think it's 122 now. But, that is really a problem for the American public filling up their cars, and the midterms, but they're in it now, the Americans.
Let's talk briefly about the appearance the U.S. Defense Secretary had before a congressional committee yesterday for questioning. What came out of that?
Yeah, this was ostensibly about $1.5 trillion that the Pentagon is asking for. That's not all about the Iran war. That was the focus ostensibly, but in fact very little time was spent on that. This was an interrogation of Hegseth, his first one before Congress since the war began. He got quite agitated, irritated with some of the questioning when people used the word quagmire. He said that is giving propaganda to the Iranians. This is a 2-month mission. The word quagmire is completely inappropriate. He was asked about the cost. He estimated, evaded that, but the Pentagon reckons about $25 billion.
Has been spent for
contrasted that with Biden, who he said had spent hundreds of billions on Ukraine. I think the New York Times suggests it's $67 billion. And he also said, what is the cost of Iran having a nuclear weapon? He evaded any price tag on that and suggested it was about something much bigger.